Hello and welcome to Fintech Founder Firesides. In this mini-series, I'll be talking to 5 founders at different stages of the product lifecycle to get a behind-the-scenes look at what's involved in getting a product to market, some of the challenges, as well as some of the learnings. Today, I'm speaking with Fizel, co-founder and COO at Algbra, a proposition for the unbanked and underserved about the discovery phase of the product lifecycle. Hey, Fizel.
Hey, Jas, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And you?
Yeah, great to be here. Good to see you again.
Cool. Yeah, you too. So for anyone who doesn't know you or hasn't heard of Algbra yet, can you give a bit of a background about yourself and also talk about Algebra, what it is, who it's for?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of background to myself. I actually spent most of my career in corporate law, working at Clifford Chance across banking, finance, regulation, and mostly in the mergers and acquisition space across London and the Middle East. And whilst I was there, I saw how a lot of the kind of Islamic or faith-based banks were operating. And I saw that actually there was a different way of delivering on what we call to be the promise of Islamic finance. The promise of Islamic finance is something that my co-founder, Ziad Idris, completely independently was also seeing through his initial business, his first startup, New World Group. And there he'd actually invested in a number of Islamic fintechs or fintechs that operate within Muslim majority countries. And what they saw is that there is a massive opportunity to bank the largest unbanked group globally. Of the world's 1.4 billion unbanked people, 800 million of them are Muslim. And when I talk about the promise of Islamic finance, what do I mean by that? Islamic finance seeks to encourage a fairer, more ethical and clearer form of banking for all parties. And it also needs to act as a member of its community. So that type of institution actually needs to empower and to grow the community within which it exists. Starting here in the UK, that is exactly what we're looking to do, and we'll be doing that later on this year.
So I think we've spoken before, and I think there's often a misconception about the different phases, and I talk about the different phases, and it sounds like they're quite distinct, but they're often quite fluid. And I know you've done some design and build, and you know people are always ongoing and doing discovery as you go. But can you talk a bit about that pre-discovery phase? Like, you and Ziad had a chat about this problem. Can you talk about how you got from just having a talk about an idea and a problem space to like getting into discovery in earnest, doing things like fundraising, like setting up a team?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, myself and Ziad are both passionate about the space, and we're also passionate about helping the communities that we're from. So our professional histories are corporate law and private equity asset management, but our personal histories are interspersed with a lot of community work, whether that's kind of helping people out with their CV reviews or helping people in underachieving schools with their university or whatever it is, right? We were always very, very passionate about using the kind of the great position that we found ourselves in to give back to our community, right? So when we got together and we did Algebra, we also realized that actually, like ourselves, a lot of our community had become disenchanted with Islamic finance in general. They felt like it no longer represented them, it no longer represented what they wanted. And I think one of the issues was, and I'll tell you later on how we've gone about trying to solve this issue, but I think one of the issues is that within the Islamic finance industry, there is always an assumption as to what the customer needs, right? And when you look at what the customer needs, you kind of go out and you look at the textbooks and you look at the materials and you look at the scholarly articles. But very few times have people gone out and actually sat down and asked people, what do you think and how do you feel and how can I help you to solve that problem? How can I help you to solve that problem is something that we're trying to do. But it was very, very important to us that we absorb the information directly from our own community.
That's a great segue into my next question, which is, the discovery phase in earnest. So what did that look like for you? What does it still look like in the things you're doing? And like what were those techniques that you used to go out to your target user base? What are the different things that you did and used to access some of that like knowledge and investigate those problems?
I think one of the things that we were very fortunate about is how common Zoom has become since we started Algebra. because Zoom has actually allowed you to go out and speak to people in as face-to-face a way as possible in a very quick way. Ordinarily, what you'd end up doing is having a phone call, or you'd have an email questionnaire, or you might see people face-to-face, but it's very, very time-consuming. So we spent maybe the first months and months of Algebra actually sitting down and getting our community onto Zoom calls, right? And it started off with friends and family, and it became their friends and family, and their friends and family, and I don't know how many interviews later, we started to get an understanding and appreciation of what the nuances were, what the questions were, and what the issues actually were. That's extremely important to me. To be clear, either myself or Ziad or one of our core team was on every single one of those calls, and we did them all face to face, because I think it's important that you hear people's stories and not simply ask them binary questions of, do you like this or do you like that? I don't think that you get the real nuance and the lived experience that's important in creating a great product.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose kind of coming off one of those points, did you, while you were doing those face-to-face interviews, did you find yourself like asking questions in a certain way and then double checking your own bias? Because I've been in positions before where I've working with an organization or working on a thing or an idea, and I'll often ask questions, and after I've asked the same question 30, 40, 50 times, I've realized that even my tone, I'm leaning towards a certain thing. Did you kind of find yourself doing that sometimes?
Yeah, for sure, a little bit. But the way we went about it, we had a list of questions that we wanted to ask people, right? And what we found was that some people cared a lot about a particular issue and didn't care so much about other issues, but you could never tell which issues are going to be more or less important to an individual. So where we found that an individual was particularly passionate about a particular thing, we made sure that we then turned it from asking the questions and getting the answers to just a conversation. Let's just have a chat about it. Because I think when you have a conversation with someone, that's when you start to get how they really feel, how they truly feel about something, and you get to that meat, that nub that helps your product go from being a good product to a great product that really speaks to people.
Yeah, spot on. Was there anything that you, like, I'm sure there were a lot of surprises, but was there anything that came out that you were like shocked to hear in terms of like the consistency of feedback? Like, this is a problem that our customer base keeps saying is a problem, and we didn't see it early on. Is there anything that popped out?
I mean, there was a lot that popped out. I think one of the things that was quite interesting is that, notwithstanding the fact that within the UK, give or take, the Islamic finance industry has grown and been successful in some shape or form, right? Now, some people would say this, but actually, broadly speaking, it's growing, it's profitable globally as well. It's a profitable industry. But what's interesting is that it's a profitable industry, right? But when we spoke to people, they said this industry, as it currently exists, is not meeting our needs. It's not speaking to us as individuals. And that I found to be especially interesting, because it meant that actually just ticking that box, right, wasn't enough. You have to actually be able to relate to people. You have to be able to speak to people. And so this is why the Algebra proposition, whilst it happens to be Sharia compliant, is actually targeted at individuals who are overlooked in society, regardless of faith, regardless of background. We believe that we are united more by our circumstances and by our desires and what we want to achieve in our life. And finance helps you to achieve those things, whether it's buying a car or getting a mortgage. And we are more united by those desires than we are divided by our backgrounds, whatever those might be. So Algebra sees itself as a proposition for all. It is an ethical finance proposition. It is a better way to deal with your finances.
Awesome. I mean, I can see the passion in the way you're explaining the proposition. It's kind of a little bit infectious, I'm not going to lie. So I suppose on the discovery part, like instilling those good principles, you've started off really well in getting the customer involved at day dot of the process, getting them in community forums, building up a waiting list of people you can access and speak to, who are going to be your actual customers on day one. How do you what are you doing as part of the discovery phase to keep that going, to like build that into your journeys, your processes, and like, you know, all the way up to launch, I suppose?
So we want our customers, we want our community to be a part of the Algebra project. This huge, massive ambition that we have to bank 200 million people globally. We want people to be a part of that project, right? And the way we're getting people to be a part of that project is through multiple ways. First of all, we are running a community engagement campaign, where we actually go into the community and we help our local communities, whether it's a sports team that might need a bit of support, or whether it's an individual who might need a CV review, or whatever it is. We've got a whole program of things coming up this year to actually give back to the communities that we came from, right? So that's one thing that we're doing to get people to be a part of it. The second bit is that you're not just giving back, but you're actually asking your community to help build Algebra with you and to help them and make them create the products that they want. And the way that I want to do that is, the way that we are doing that is by actually getting members of our community to come in focus groups. But it's not just a focus group where I sit there asking them questions and showing them a few slides and seeing what they think. I'm going to get my marketeer to come in, sit with them, the marketing team, and I want them to speak to each other. I want the engineers to come in and actually speak directly to the customer. And I want them to speak to multiple. So we actually have that on a rolling basis fairly often. I think that if our engineers, who are phenomenal engineers, right, they're exceptional. I think that if our engineers build for a person rather than for a solution, you get a better product. You get heart and soul into that product, and that again takes it from being a good product to a great product, because you're not just removing a bug, you are helping Sam, you are helping Sarah, and I think that's a really awesome way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think the other kind of thing that solves during that discovery, design, build, those key stages, is that everyone knows what they're building towards and who they're building for. So there's no ambiguity. So when you're building something and you're like, oh, how should it look? What should the priorities be? Should it be quick, or should it be reliable, or should it be cool? You know, like, your customers have told you, well, I want it to be reliable more than anything, or I want it to look fancy more than anything. And they know at that point, like, they don't have to go ask the chief product person or the marketeer. They know, well, this is how we should build it. And they kind of have that in their head, so they can own the engineering solution at all stages.
Exactly. And what's incredible as well is how keen the community has actually been to be involved in that process. So we'll actually have people kind of volunteering and saying, can we contribute to this strategy? Can we do that? Can we get involved? So we're sort of creating an orbit around us of people who are really passionate about the way we're doing our marketing, or are really passionate about our crypto strategy, and they're just getting involved. And that's awesome. If that's not a community, then what is? But it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow. So to see the kind of the stages of that, to see that passion that we had to build this community around us from a year ago, and knowing that what we are building is a phenomenal financial product, I'm super excited by what the next few months and the rest of the year holds.
Awesome. And so there's been a lot of, obviously, positivity there. What's been one of the challenges of doing discovery on a completely new proposition for the market?
It's an interesting question. I think sometimes when you're kind of speaking to people, you might get an answer and you think, that's a great answer, that's fantastic, right? But there's a reason I speak to people one-on-one when we're doing our research, rather than sending out a form, right? Because sometimes I feel like somebody might give you an answer they just kind of want to move on and get to the next question, kind of thing, right? Because they don't necessarily want to tell you everything or whatever it is. And I think actually being able to speak to people in a way that gets them comfortable, gets them relaxed and chilled out and kind of open to discussing that with you, when we do get that, That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. And I think that takes a bit of work, but it's always worth it. It is always, always worth it because, again, sort of takes your product that little notch higher.
And again, this is kind of a question out of curiosity, and I think if I'm curious about it, I suppose a lot of other people will be. At what point do you know, discovery, design, build are always ongoing, but you know, at what point did you do the bulk of the discovery and then go, right, I think this is kind of enough to move forwards. We continue to do discovery, but the bulk of this is what we're going to use as the foundation. Was it like, did you use any measures to kind of like, okay, we're going to get 1,000 responses, and if you know 30% of them are validating what we think, then great? Or was it time boxing that discovery bit, or what was it?
So we actually selected a number of issues. We basically spoke to a bunch of people and thought, all right, what are the common issues that are jumping out at us here, right? And once we found those common issues, and we thought, okay, actually now when we're speaking to people, we're getting repeat answers. We're give or take, we've covered, let's say, 90% of all the possible issues that people have kind of jumped out at us, right? So we kind of laid those out. And then what we did in our second phase of discovery is we started to test the nuances within each one of those issues rather than asking all of the questions. And once we tested the nuances into each one of those issues, we then had a look at what the solutions were, built our roadmap around that, and started to plug that in. Now, we've basically at that point, we thought we have enough here to do what we need to do and kind of move into the next phase. Nevertheless, once we move into the next phase, you start to iterate, you know, inch by inch and centimeter by centimeter, rather than meter by meter as we were in those initial phases.
Awesome. So I think I've asked about the challenges. I'm going to ask about what you're enjoying most, but I can take a guess, but you can hit me with it. What are you enjoying most about the discovery part of building Algebra?
I think the thing that I enjoy the most, honestly, is I think the thing that I really, really enjoy the most is being able to understand in nuance and in a technical way what it is that we can do to best serve some of the most overlooked communities in the UK. That for me is awesome because, you know, I'm only one guy and I like to help out where I can in my own kind of life. But to be able to understand that on a mass scale and to be able to kind of help out, empower and grow on a mass scale, to find out what the solutions are for that, I can't explain to you how blessed I feel.
I think, yeah, we can see it on your face. We can see it on your face. So sometimes you don't even need words. You say it, and then you can see it. So it's great to see.
Yeah, at least that will turn off the video. This is all a bit embarrassing.
So I suppose, you know, I'm looking at a lot of the product side of things, and I think sometimes the tech side gets overlooked. And I suppose specifically on the you know, it's a Sharia compliant proposition, and again, like you said, it's not limited to people who are looking for Sharia compliant financial services, but it's Sharia compliant. Did that, in terms of the, you know, that I suppose the technical product discovery, did that kind of make things a bit more difficult when you were coming to look at things like, you know, core banking solutions or vendors or payment processors?
I wouldn't say that it made it more difficult. Our core platform itself is designed to be kind of Sharia compliant, so we don't have any kind of interest modules in there or anything like that. And then the rest of it is kind of just making sure that end to end, and I won't steal my CTO's thunder in explaining how he's gone and kind of made everything Sharia compliant. But the way we've built it out, it is end-to-end Sharia compliant. It wasn't especially kind of challenging to make that happen. Yeah, it was fine actually overall. It was okay.
Awesome. And just to close out, what if you were going to give someone like entering this phase, a bit of advice, what would it be? Just like if they come up with an idea, they're entering like a discovery in earnest bit of work. What bit of advice would you give them?
I would say test every bias, make no assumptions, and whatever it is that you do, remember that yes, you are trying to realize your own vision, but your own vision may not be your own tastes, it may not be your own requirements. You have a vision for a particular world that you want to see come to life, right, through the business that you founded. But you have to put the most important people at the heart of every single process, and those people are your customers. Speak to them, bring them in, pay attention to what they're saying. Even if you don't like it, swallow it and deal with it and move on. That's the most important thing, piece of advice that I would give anyone, because I know that I personally have, I've grown from it, I've learned from it, and that's the best advice that I could give to them.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for speaking to me today, Fizel. And I think myself and a lot of others will be keeping a really close eye on Algebra, and looking forward to the launch.
Cheers, Jas. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.